Hi everyone, my name is Wilson and today I'm going to teach you how to make a granny square. I'm starting off by showing you my yarn and showing you that it has the size of hook that I will need for this project. So I need a size H/8 for this. And then I also showed you my stitch marker. You shouldn't need it for this project, but I did use it for a moment, so I just wanted to let you know what it was. So I'm going to start this video off by showing you 3 different ways you could start your granny square. So first I'm starting with a chain 4 circle. So what I do is I chain 4, and then I'm going to insert my hook into that first little stitch that I made, and I'm going to combine it to make our circle using a slip stitch. Makes a nice little circle. After that, I'm going to chain 1 and then start my granny clusters. A granny cluster is typically 3 double crochets. You don't have to worry about learning about that quite yet because we will get onto it later in the video. But this is what our first method looks like with a granny cluster in it. Our second method is very similar. You're going to again start by chaining 4, and then later on we'll go and combine it into one circle. So I start with my chain 4. I go into the first hole of my chain and make a slip stitch. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my first hole where I just slip stitched, and I'm just going to start my granny clusters right there using the chain stitches that I made. I'm going to use that in order to place my different granny clusters. As you see, I'm just finishing up this granny cluster in order to show you me moving on to the next stitch in that little circle chain that we made. There it is, and all I'm going to do is continue that granny cluster process. As I said earlier, do not worry about doing a granny cluster right this second because I am going to get to it a little bit later in the video when we actually create our granny square. What I am showing you now is just me finishing up this first row of the granny clusters for the granny square for this style, just so you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like when you are all done. Now it's time to learn the magic circle. So grab your thread, wrap it over your fingers, making a cross on the palm side and 2 parallel on the top side of your hand. Go under that thread by your fingertips, grab the other one, do a little scoop, and then do a slip knot. Now you're going to start your double crochets, so yarn over, go through the magic circle, yarn over, pull that thread through, and then pull through 2 loops, yarn over, 2 loops. Again, it's yarn over, go through your magic circle, yarn over again, pull it out, go through 2 loops, go through 2 loops. And then chain 1 at the end, and this creates your first granny cluster. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make 3 more of them. So it's just the same thing. It is 3 double crochets, and then you do a chain 1 at the end. So after you do your 4 granny clusters or 4 sets of 3 double crochets, it should look a little something like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my first stitch of my first granny cluster and I'm going to do a slip stitch. So just pulling the thread through and pulling everything together. Then I'm going to chain 2 to get a set for the next round. Then after this, what I do is I grab that little tail from our magic circle and pull on it nice and tight to close it up. This is why I prefer the magic ring. I think it looks a little cleaner, but it is totally up to you what option you prefer. It doesn't matter. So for this round of granny clusters, we're actually going to be doing 6 double crochets instead of 3. The reason why we are doing 6 is that is what makes it more of a square. It needs more of that fullness and that stretch. Because if you do only 3 instead of 6, what you end up with is a granny bowl and not a granny square. So for this round, you are going to find the little chain spots that we did where it was that 1, 2, 3 stitches for a granny cluster and that chain 1 before we did 3 more. You see there was a little hole there. I'm actually about to do it right now again, making sure I have all 6 of my double crochets for that corner. Do my chain 1, you always need that chain 1, and then counting my 1, 2, 3. There's that chain, and I'm going to do the same process over again with those 6 double crochets.
The suppression. The use of marijuana.
Alright, I have finished that little cluster. I'm again doing my 1, 2, 3 count to find where we did that chain spot. And again, the process continues with just those 6 double crochets. I have yet again completed another cluster of 6. So I did my count, making sure I had all 6 there. Then I did my 3 count to find my spot. And the process continues again. This is what's so kind of nice about granny squares, is that it is very repetitive. So it's not too much to actually keep track of. And once you really get into the flow of it, it becomes much easier. I am now just finishing up the last little bit of this cluster, so I'm going to take that chain 2 that we did at the very start and slip stitch this cluster to it. That makes things all nice and tidy. Then I'm going to chain 2 again. Now is when things get fun. So you'll see that I have that little hole there. We are going to do a typical granny cluster here. So that's just 3 double crochets right in this hole. And then once I finish that, I'm going to go in between those 6s that we made. So 3 on each side. And we are going to make 6 clusters again. So these are the corners. So the side holes that you'll see that you make each get 3 double crochets. And in the corners where we did those 6 double crochets, you're going to split it in half, 3 and 3. And do 6 more double crochets in between those 2. I know it's a little bit different because usually we're looking for that chain spot in between. So for the corners, there isn't that chain spot. You just kind of have to count and stick your hook in there. But I promise it isn't too difficult. And like I said, once you get into the groove of things, that's when things get super duper easy. But we are also on the last row of our typical size granny square. So that is so exciting. So you'll see I have finished my 6 and now I'm starting my 3 again. And then after my 3, I'll go back to my 6. It's kind of nice. Now, while working on this cluster, this is the spot where I realized I ran out of yarn. So I put my stitch marker in my open loop that I was working with so I don't lose it, and I'm going to show you how to add on a different yarn color. Now, this is just a demonstration square, so I didn't care about the colors or where the colors went, but if you do, you would just cut your yarn according to where you want your color change at and do your color change in this spot. So I don't know how to explain this not verbally, so hopefully you can just kind of understand what I'm doing by watching. I know that's kind of a stinky thing to say, but I really just don't know how to describe this. I'm just looping the one color of yarn over the other, and then I pull it through a little hole that is made from itself. I pull it together and it makes these two knots, and then I just pull them together just like that, and that's how I bind two yarns together. So from here, I'm just going to kind of pick up where I left off. I'm going to take out my little stitch marker, and stick my hook back in the hole and just keep on going with the process. I had one more stitch left in this cluster for this 3 before I move on to doing the 6 again, and oh, we're about to see that yarn change. So exciting. Alright, and we have finished this row of our granny clusters. So to finish this off, we're going to find that first stitch. We will do a slip stitch. And then from here, it is technically all done. I'll give you a show of the front and the back. I prefer to do a single stitch border around mine. I think it makes things very nice, very clean, helps give it shape. So all you do is stick it through your stitch up top and do a single crochet through it. Stick it through and a single crochet. Again, I just think this helps clean things up. It makes it look a little bit nicer. I also think it makes it easier when you're actually using these granny squares in a project. Say you're going to make it into a blanket or a bag or whatever you want. Having these nice clean stitches all the way around for either sewing or using single crochet, double crochet, half double, treble, whatever you want in between. I think it just makes it much, much easier. I will say, as you've probably seen by now, that I do usually struggle with the one hole. I can't remember if it's the slip stitch hole or if it's the last double crochet hole, but I want to say it's our chain one, slip stitch, however you want to say it. Our chain one, finishing up a cluster. That one I always struggle with, but I do eventually get it through. Sometimes you just need a little bit of patience, and there ain't nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I just finish everything up with a little single crochet border. And as you're about to see, I once again ran out of yarn, so let's just do a quick little look at how our border is looking so far. Very nice. And then off camera, I am going to just add another skein of yarn on using our little trick that I taught you earlier. It was honestly really hard to kind of do that in the air for the camera, so hopefully seeing it the one time was good enough and clear enough. I really just was like, I don't know if I could do this in the air again, and it looked any sort of decent. But I'm just gonna continue to pick up where I left off and continue my single crochet border. Hello again, and I am finishing up our final stitches. And then in our first single crochet where we did that border, I just do a slip stitch right there, and here's what it looks like all done with that border. What I would do from here is cut the yarn as I'm doing with my fingers. Like I said, this was a demo square, so I didn't actually cut anything, but with that loose end I would just pull it through our last little loop, and I would pull it nice and tight, and that will officially tie off your project. With that little tail, you could just take a darning needle and just kind of weave it in and out of your piece. But that is what it looks like with the nice finished edge. Thank you guys so much!